Almost always forget to unmute my mic. Hello, everyone. My name is David Reed. Welcome to Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. This is episode 313. Peter Bodnarus, art director for Stargate SG-1 and Atlantis, is joining me in this pre-recorded episode, so the mods will not be taking your questions at this time. Hopefully, I'll hit pretty much everything you would like to ask him anyway. Peter Bodnarus, art director. Hello, sir. Welcome to Dial the Gate.
Glad to be here, David. Really glad.
I'm really thrilled to have you. You were art director on Stargate SG-1 from season 6 to season 7, and then they switched you over to Atlantis for seasons 1 and seasons 2 and 2. So you were there 2002 to '05, if I'm doing
Something
my
like
math
that.
correctly. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I see you have an Emmy back there. What is that to, if I may ask?
Well, so I was on Shogun, and I was part of the Emmy-winning art department on Shogun. The Emmy that you see there, the statuette, is actually for another show, Monsterville Cabinet of Horrors. It was a daytime Emmy. But I just, matched it together with a bit of Shogun memorabilia, and, I'll let people draw their own conclusions.
Absolutely. I've been meaning to see Shogun. I hear it is excellent.
I recommend it. I recommend it.
From a historical perspective, from an entertainment perspective, from all of it?
I would start with an entertainment perspective. It's an absolutely gorgeous, well-told, and gripping program. It's just the right mix of beautiful language and graphic violence. And,
we all love our graphic violence down here in the States.
But in a way that's everything that's happening is sort of moves the story forward. And I thought a lot about Stargate when I was working on Shogun, because a lot of things that we were trying to do in these is we're trying to create these alien worlds, right? And that's one of the things I think that kind of Stargate really sort of what set it apart, is this kind of, taking sort of this anthropological approach kind of seriously. Like, I remember when I was, a kid, you'd see science fiction and be like, oh, what would the alien, plates look like? What would the alien knife and fork look like? And there's nothing more alien than being in a society where it's like, what would the aliens' tables and chairs look like? And there's nothing more alien than being in a society where they're like, tables, chairs, what are those? When they eat, there's no forks, there's no knives, there's no table. The floor of the house is the table, and that leads to that culture of extreme cleanliness. And so I was able to kind of immerse my sort of design obsession and my design passion with working on that show, and also my sort of my experience and my knowledge of Stargate. Like, people were trying to get their brains, like, ancient Japan is truly an alien culture, and people were trying to get their brains around working on this show because it was so alien, but it was also known. There were people. We had a raft of Japanese consultants. I think I worked with 5 different people. I had a garden consultant, a traditional movement consultant, a samurai consultant. I had an actual. I worked with Harada Toru, who was a well-regarded filmmaker, and so we're creating this absolutely alien world, but we have to be authentic. And so we had all this, the way I explained it to people, it would be like if I was working on a Star Trek movie, and we actually had a Klingon consultant who's like, we've talked about this. When you're drinking blood wine from the skull of your enemy, the nasal phalange has to be facing away from their mouth. Like that was the kind of like,
wow. That is
and
nuts.
that was the level of like, when we're severing the heads of the enemies, this is how we display them. And it's done in a very particular way.
That is just the level of detail that is in so much of today's programming. And it's not just because it's in higher resolution now. Obviously, that's a given, so things have to look good. But the historical accuracy, because the internet is readily available to us, and people are going to find out very quickly if you're faking something.
Well,
But also
and
the
it's a
pride of
global.
getting it right because we're starting from the beginning anyway. So just let's do it right.
Exactly. And we had incredibly visionary producers. We had Justin Marks and Rachel Kondo. And, they're American Japanese couple. And they brought this incredible sort of insight into, striving for authenticity, but also entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
One of the struggles we had on Shogun was that all of many of the consultants were not filmmakers. So they're striving, you strive for authenticity, but you also have to make it uh,
Adaptable.
understandable to the viewer,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's first and foremost, we weren't creating a theme park. We were creating a entertaining, engaging, riveting, and a story that speaks to multiple people. So while it had to be authentic and to the Japanese experience and speak to Japanese culture, it also had to be sort of comprehensible to other people. And again, it's amazing how my Stargate experience kind of informed my time on Shogun.
Well, let's go back to that. So, how did you know that this was putting pen to paper? Was the and pencil and all the different formats to paper was what you were going to want to make yourself successful and satisfied as an adult. And how did those roads eventually lead to Stargate?
Well, what I would say to all the kids out there is that it's never your path is your path, and it's never a straight line. So I always grew up. I was incredibly artistic as a child. I was always drawing. And one of the problems, though, is I went to a very strict Catholic school, and doodling in your notebooks was a very bad thing.
Bet you never doodled on the back of the tests when you were done early.
Finishing
I bet that was a
a test
no.
early.
Right.
So I struggled in school, but I always drawing was always I suppose today you'd call it self-regulation. Drawing was always a thing that was a release, and so I sort of I was a good kid, and I finished school, and I put away art, and we went to university. Actually became a banker. I was a bank manager. I
No
was,
way. You're
yeah,
lying.
I
Really?
was at
All right,
24
your
years
balance
old.
is $0, ma'am. You better be careful.
Oh, I got into trouble. There was no room for humor in a bank.
Okay,
A woman
here's
came in one
zero.
day. She
You're
was mad.
here.
Her balance was out 2 cents, and she's like, "I want that 2 cents right now." So I took a couple pennies out of the drawer and I put it on the counter. And she's like, "I need to speak. Who's in charge?" And I'm like, "Well, that's
God, some people, man.
yeah." So I decided that this wasn't for me, and
Yeah.
so I asked. I had an incredibly supportive group of friends
Mm.
who were like, dude, this is, you can't see it, but we know who you are. So for my 25th birthday, they all got together and they bought me architecture books and pens and pencils and drafting
Oh,
equipment and art supplies and sketchbooks. They bought me this whole package.
you had an
And
intervention birthday.
it was an intervention. It was absolutely an intervention. And the next birthday, I was at architecture school at UBC, and so and when I was at architecture school, that's when I discovered that my capacity for drawing was actually something that I could actually make a living at. That was
Oh,
sort of the first. So I was already in my mid 20s, and I had one degree and one career, and that's when I just discovered that I can there is another path. And so after architecture, I relocated to Berlin, Germany. I lived in Berlin for a few years, learned German, worked for a couple of architecture firms. And the stuff that always got notice in my work was my sketching and drawing abilities.
Yeah,
And
I mean, yes.
yeah. Oh, Peter, you're so good at drawing. This is very good. Yeah. Those are
Ah,
all
good. Yeah. Yeah.
Berlin. They're all Prussians, right? There's no freehand sketching, right?
And you better make it to your train on time. Oh
Exactly.
gosh. Wow, what an
Um,
experience. And you can
it
drink beer
really
at your
was.
desk.
What's that?
And you can drink beer at your desk.
Not in Berlin.
Not in Berlin. Really? My
Bavaria.
buddy sure did.
Bavaria, you can drink beer at your desk.
Okay.
Berlin is
Wow.
Berlin. You don't have to show up till 10, but
Okay.
there's no. Yeah, if you're, it's a funny. So in architecture, if you're like the actual guys building, if you're the Maurer, the stonemasons or the
Yeah.
carpenters, those they start their day at 7.
Yeah.
They start their day at
For
7,
sure.
but the architects don't stroll in till 10 o'clock. But then they don't go home till like 8 o'clock, right? So it's it's a funny sort of culture there.
How does
But
Germany lead to Vancouver?
well, I had while I was in Berlin, I had got an invitation to return to Vancouver to work for a professor of mine. She was starting her own firm. This sounds like I'm humble bragging, but honest to God, this is how it happened. So she was starting her own architecture firm, and she invited me to come back. And I jumped at the chance because it was she wanted to hire me as a designer, which was a very, very difficult thing to do when you're starting in architecture. The kind of I call it the creative economy of architecture is very, very, very restrictive. There's a few guys at the top that who the guys have been there forever. They own the firms. They get to have all the design, and everybody else is just kind of doing the technical stuff. So to be invited to design was like, oh my God. So and it was also a little bit kind of adventurous too. We were building projects in northern Canada for I mean I guess in the U.S. you call them American Indians.
Hmm.
Here in Canada we call them First Nations.
Hmm.
So I was building projects with First Nations. So we would travel to the village, we would meet with the elders, meet with the community, we discuss kind of what their needs were, and then so I ended up building a public school and a
Wow.
public kindergarten. So I had
Wow.
sort of two projects under my belt, and this was all going very, very well. And then a really bad recession hit in the '90s, and I that firm, well, the governments changed, the work changed.
Yeah.
I got sent.
Yeah.
I and ended up, you know, getting laid off. And so I moved into another firm, a very sort of high end kind of corporate sort of very sort of real architecture. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. This is I'm back at the bank. I'm back at the bank. I am like, no matter how it's a funny culture where no matter how this firm that I was at, no matter how long you've been there or how talented you were, it was a little bit like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. So there was one Willy Wonka, and no matter how much experience or talent you had, everyone else was just an
And
Oompa
Oompa
Loompa.
Loompa.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
At least you
so
get to sing
I
and
had,
dance.
yeah, at least, and I love the uniforms, right?
Oh, of
Uh,
course. But I mean,
and
you're
I,
not. Are you able to be creative? It doesn't sound like you're able to express your creative outlets at all, other than exactly in the line of someone else's vision. I mean, how
yeah,
fun is that?
which works for some people,
Yeah.
which works for some people. And, maybe in another universe where I had started in architecture, I had gone directly into architecture from high school, or, but by this time, I was already, like almost 30. Or, yeah, I think I was 30. I was sort of, I didn't really relish the 10 years of sort of, doing the kind of technical stuff before I had a chance to do the fun stuff. And so I had a friend, a very good friend, Brian Whitred. He is a director of photography, very, very talented. I think now he might actually be president of the of IATSE 669.
Wow.
And he, for years, he was at the party where, Pete, he was at the intervention party, right? And he was like, dude, I know a play, I know where you'll be able to use your
Yeah.
natural talents. And yeah, so that's how it started. So at 35 years old with 2 degrees, I quit architecture, even though I was like halfway to being an intern architect. I got a job on a film. Uh, it was it was the Insomnia with Al Pacino
Robin
and
Williams.
I got to meet Robin Williams.
Oh man, one of the darker movies he did.
And
Yeah.
well, that's part of him, right? Like that part
Yeah.
was he never sort of
Yeah.
talked about it, but he was his capacity. And I've seen this in my career that a lot of super talented comedians are also quite brilliant actors. And I think there's something about comedy that is you have to access some pretty dark places to make the comedy work. And I think if you access those same dark places, but just don't add there's no button at the end, it makes for some pretty compelling drama.
And there's a lot of intensity there that's real. Mrs. Doubtfire is my favorite film of his. The second, close second, is 1 Hour Photo. His
Yes, it's
intensity
intensity.
is and sadness, because there was a lot of sadness there if you've seen his documentary,
Yeah,
is so sincere. And gosh, working on a film with him, man, I can only imagine, Peter.
I cut in front of him at the donut line. That's the only interaction I had. And then I was like, they had like the mini donut truck on the lot, and I was like, and I look around and there's Robin Williams. I'm like, go ahead. He's like, no,
Yeah.
no, man, it's
Aw,
okay. I don't need these either.
so Insomnia.
And
Okay.
so I was on Insomnia. So I'm 35 years old. I am, like I said, 35 years old, 2 degrees. I am making photocopies. I am getting people coffee. I am taking film to be developed. I'm an art department assistant. I am at the bottom of the food chain. Okay. And I'm like, well, we'll see. You know what? We'll give this,
Yeah.
we'll give this 6 months.
Yeah. Give
I
it a
still have
try.
some contacts in architecture.
That's right.
We'll see how this
You've
goes.
got a ripcord.
Yeah. And then I came in one morning, as I do, because that was part of my architecture kind of. This isn't Berlin anymore. So I came in early one morning before everyone else. And there was Nathan Crowley, much hair ago. So he was our production designer. And of course, he went on to do some very great things. So there's Nathan, and he's building this like huge landscape model. He's got a meeting coming up, and he's one of the first you know production designers that I really sort of had this almost had a bit of a almost an academic approach to things where he wouldn't start by drawing things. He would start by getting images on a magazine. Like everyone does it now, everyone goes to the image to the internet and sources image.
Sure.
But this is like way before the internet. He would order boxes and boxes of high quality magazines that had images of different parts, locations and stuff, and he would just go through these magazines and use that to kind of build up his concept boards. And then in order to sort of get people's heads around what he was trying, he would build these big models and very loose models, right? This wasn't sort of something that was precious and supposed to be kind of in front of the camera. This was a tool for discussion.
Are we talking about the
And
maquettes, like some of the ones we're about to see?
like some of the ones we're about to see, exactly, maquettes. And that was another thing when I was in Berlin. You know, Germans are known for their models, and even in Germany, people were like, "That's some really good model building, my friend."
Yeah.
And
They
so
save
I
money too, because you can see it in smaller scale before you build it.
absolutely, and it takes people. You'd be amazed how many sort of higher ups and producers struggle to get that around their head. That if you because this is the time of early kind of CGI and 3D modeling, computer modeling, and everyone was very excited about 3D. The problem with 3D is, and which is largely has been resolved now with 3D printing, is that if you have someone building a 3D model, you're kind of looking at it through a window. You're not actually able to kind of. And one thing what I've discovered exactly, and you get everyone in the room, everyone looking at it, everyone's looking at the same thing. There's no Gucci lighting or suggest or cheater camera angles, and it really helps people understand things. So he walks in, he's trying to get this model ready. He's got the producers coming in. He's I can see that he's a bit stressed, and I just kind of put my hand up and I said, I can do that. And so I ended up building all the models for all the sets on Insomnia. And it's for construction, but it's also for producers. It's for painters. It's for everyone. And I had this amazing sort of time doing this stuff that I love to do that actually kind of serves a very important role in helping people tell a story. And I was like, okay, maybe this will work. And then, so I spent the rest of that year kind of, so from Insomnia, I went to the core. Again, I built a whole bunch of giant maquettes for the core.
Ah, The Driller. I
And
love that movie. I love that.
yeah,
It's one of my guilty pleasures.
yeah,
Yeah,
and Stanley Tucci, like
he's
how great is
brilliant.
Stanley Tucci? Yes.
Yeah.
At the rep party, my wife dropped a plate of hors d'oeuvres on his feet. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was someone else. The graphic designer dropped a plate of hors d'oeuvres on his feet,
Oh
and
no.
and then she ran. And when Stanley Tucci looked up, my wife was like standing right there, and so he kind of made the association that it was her, and that's kind of.
No. Don't send me to
But
the
yeah,
Hunger Games, please.
so I built I built all the maquettes for the core except for the actual the inside of the geode was built by a very experienced model builder and who had been in the industry a long time, and the guy was an absolute genius.
So, wow. So you did the cockpit, the gimbaled cockpit.
The gimbaled cockpit. No.
Okay.
What I built was the actual the launch pad.
Okay.
So we had the inverted gantry.
Yep.
Okay. So I built a maquette of the inverted gantry. I built a maquette of the actual Earth ship in the warehouse.
Okay.
And I had the sort of the full size Earth ship. I built a kind of a full size maquette Earth ship, and then I built the warehouse, and I built the gantry. And I also built a full scale mock-up of the devices, the nuclear devices that they were using.
Wow.
And
That's
so
so
I'm like,
cool. It's
so
amazing when
my
you have
wife,
a high budget what you can get away with. I was like, let's go to
oh yeah,
town.
oh yeah,
I'm sure, of
oh
course, there are limits, but yeah.
yeah. And then so after that, I worked on a couple of other like I think Smallville and a few other things. But what I did when I was sort of doing all this kind of hands-on, model building and kind of sketching and stuff, is I was also developing. I've always been passionate about working with the computer, working with 3D modeling,
Mm.
because I knew that not only is that the future, but it also it's just another tool. It's another kind of important tool.
Mhm.
So while I was doing this, I was teaching myself 3D modeling on a number of programs, and just for so I had produced some concept art of Superman, of I guess Kal-El's pod that he came to Earth in for
Mm.
Smallville
Right at the beginning. Okay.
right at the beginning. And so this 3D model, this digital painting that I had done like 25 years ago, like nobody's, I mean, kids learn it in high school now, right? But back then there was not a lot of people that were doing that. So I had done this digital painting of this pod, and with fully textured, rendered lighting, and then in Photoshop, adding accents and stuff like that.
Did it still have did it already have the triangle shape at that point?
Yes,
Yeah,
so
okay. That's a cool sequence.
that was a direction from the production designer, and I thought I was because basically the idea was that it has the shape of the House of
Hmm.
El Chiron. And I get tingles just thinking about it now. Like what a great idea. What a
And the
great idea.
capsule in the middle, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that was, and it was, so while the design was not my idea, I'm going to take a certain amount of credit for, helping to realize it.
Yeah.
And that's And that at that point, I think it was that point where I was like, I don't know that I can go back to architecture. Like architecture is very serious and very uh, there's not a lot. It's again, there's an element of the bank in it. And I remember I think I was actually on Insomnia. I was building this beautifully rendered, colored, sculptured model of the lake house. And I had this like existential crisis. I was like, is this what a responsible adult does with his life? It's this, and I realized it's like, oh, it was more a question, are you allowed to have fun at work? And I eventually I decided the answer was yes. So so I produced this very, I mean, by today's standards, very crude sort of digital painting, but it was evocative and it communicated clearly the design intent and the painting and all that stuff. And that made it into my portfolio. So when I went to my interview for Stargate, so I got called for Stargate. I went for my interview with the production designer at the time, Bridget
Bridget
McGuire.
McGuire.
And that's the thing that she zeroed in on. She's like, "Can you do this again? Is this you? Did you do this?" And yes, I did. "Can you do it again?" I said, "Oh, yes, I can." And I didn't know at the time. I didn't know at the time, but I imagine that she had already had the brief that Stargate was moving into a world where, they were trying to create um, some defense for like at some point someone's like, you know what, the earth needs some defenses beyond shovels.
Exactly. We need something a little bit more advanced. And I
Something
mean,
a little bit more advanced, yeah.
as a designer, if someone would come to me, two people would be like, one would be like, would you like to do the new addition to the Guggenheim? Or would you like to design spaceships? It's a tough call. I don't know. Yeah, right? My gosh.
That's the thing. Well, that's the thing. In architecture, no one's going to come up to me and say, "Hey, how about in addition to the Goog?" They're going to come up to me and say, "We need a warehouse in a suburb.
Okay, fine.
Are you in?"
Okay, so the Guggenheim and spaceships are comparable. Very well.
Guggenheim spaceships are comparable.
Okay.
But someone's like, "Hey, so we've got another warehouse. We need another big box in a suburb. What do you say? Maybe we'll let you add a little pooky thing at the entry, but we'll probably cut that at the end because of budgets."
So what's the first thing Bridget threw at you?
Oh my God. So the first thing was that, you know what? This is lore. What you're hearing now is lore. And I have two teenage boys. One plays Destiny, and all of us play D&D. And lore is kind of a big part of our life. So this is lore. So here I am, day two of Stargate, maybe day four, settling in, got my computer, met Peter DeLuise. He made us all crack up. He's like,
He's bad, man. You're not going to get any work done around
incredibly
him.
he's incredibly on set though. When he directs though, he is, he's a what you'd call a I really like working with directors who are also actors, because their focus is on the actors, and that just makes for more entertaining television. Anyway, day two, day three, um, Bridget walks into the art department. She goes, "Who wants to design a space fighter?" I swear to God. And I was like, and I'm a pretty, chill, laid back, and I just like, yeah, literally, I said, "Pick
It's like
me."
the Leafs have scored.
Yeah, yeah, pick me. So we watched, so we were, yeah, like the Leafs that score. Yeah, exactly. So we're Canucks, depending on,
Okay, fine. That's
not
right.
Boston, not Boston. You don't do that. Anyway,
So they had
so we're,
Tangent established with the X301 in season 4, and you had the Death Gliders, and that's what you're designing this thing from, because we're reverse engineering essentially gold tech, and that's where this thing comes from.
yes, and that's what I found so exciting. So I agreed to this without knowing what I was doing. I had been watching, I had been catching up on my Stargate after I had the interview, because I was hired sometime in December, and so I was catching up on my Stargate episodes, but I had not got to that episode.
Mm.
And so we watched all those episodes as an art department. And that's where I began to understand this idea of, you know, we're going to be defending the Earth using reverse engineered Goa'uld technology. Ah, there we go. There we go. So my pitch, this was like my first kind of design pitch ever in film, and and basically the we need a Goa'uld death glider, but it has to be built by the Tauri. And so I said, why don't we make a death glider and mash it up with the F-117 stealth fighter? And they bought it, and they said, yeah, great, go for it.
Those are those
And
lines.
so I was like, the 12-year-old me inside my was shaking. I was like, oh my God, is this real? Am I do-? But then, the adult that has had a couple of design degrees and has worked in Germany and is, worked in the North with,
First
building
Nations, yeah.
First Nations is like, okay, what's the design brief?
Right.
What is the design brief? What does it? Well, first of all, it's got to look cool. Okay, this is Stargate's first spaceship, and we need to kind of announce that this is something exceptional. Second thing is that it has to work with the story. So there's one of my sketchbook pages. That's another idea that I had. It wasn't in the script, but I thought that the sort of the ejection handles on the old I think it was the F4 Phantom, it was over.
Yep.
Nowadays I think the ejection handles are kind of lower because it just gravity works that way. But I had an idea. I pitched the ejection handles kind of by the head, and I'm new to film at this time. I am new to television, and so I had designed these incredibly cool ejection seat type seats for the spaceship, and they're all like, "Yeah, that's great, but we can't see the actors' heads." You can see if in that sketch there that it's quite tall, and that it was, you're not going to be able to, and bulky. And so you're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to do 50-50s and overs. And so I took that to heart, and I designed kind of a lower version of, like, so it's kind of more at the neck height, but it still allows it still allows kind of, the ability to kind of look behind. And then the other kind of imperative was that we be able to sort of have both the face of both actors in frame at the same time. And so that's where the kind of the stepped cockpit comes from. So you've got, but none of that looks like it was, designed to work for the TV show. It was, I tried to make it look like it would, this is how this is how this machine is, and why would it be any other way?
And this is coming forward out of Air Force and Navy tech, and there's going to be a certain design familiarity there because they are of the same family, they are of the same kind. It's the same military. It's just one is just a little bit quieter than the other ones are. So it makes a lot of sense. But we have some maquettes here as well that we were kind of alluding to before. Let's have a look. I have not seen this, and I've seen a lot of the maquettes, and I've sold a few of them through PropWorks, and this is not one I've come across.
I don't know what happened to that one. That was something, again, I was new to this world, and I had no idea at the time the kind of, the cultural, the interest this kind of stuff would generate. So I built that out of paper, and
Wow.
and I think it might have been, I hate to say it, I think it might have been recycled. But you can see with the faceted, this is where kind of the computers come in. So I did all these kind of sketches and sort of, marker concepts, but to actually get all those facets, I built it in the computer, and then I was able to just kind of lay those flat facets out and kind of fold and assemble. The jet intakes you see in the back, that was also a request from the director and the producers, because if there's a bit of scenery behind their heads, then every time we shoot back, we're not shooting into like a star screen or a green screen or something that's complicated and expensive. So I took all of the kind of the production asks and I tried to make them feel as though they were a natural part of what this machine would be. this is an example of sort of the working up the graphics on the again, it's human Earth technology, so it's got to have all those things. So it's got explosive bolts, it's got no step lines, it's got ejection seat warnings, all those graphics. I had done those graphics in red, but I think in the final model, I think in the final kind of
Correct.
visual effects, it was all. I think the graphics are all black.
Yeah.
And there's that's the 3D model. Again, you can see this is a long time ago, so this is quite a obviously the rendering and texturing.
Hey, it still looks pretty good, Peter.
Oh, thank you. That is a 25-year-old model, my friend. No, what is that?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
22-year-old model.
Yeah.
So the blue Naquita generators, I don't think lasted. I think I think that went away.
That's what those are. That's cool to know.
Yeah, I think that was there was like carrying. It was carrying some kind of the Naquita fuel pods.
Yeah. Speaking of carrying,
there you go. That was a very simple kind of Photoshop mock-up that I did. I did a rendering of the ship. And
the gate. It looks like someone flew up there with O'Neill alongside the 747 and took that while he was trying to get the gate out of the atmosphere. It really does. I buy it.
We were so there was so much invested in this project, and every idea that we pitched, Brad Wright he would listen to it. Some ideas he'd be like, nope. And other ideas, he would be like, "Yeah, we can probably make that work."
Tell me about. Finish your thought first.
So they were like, what if because they pitched, what if they were carrying it on a 747 like the space shuttle? I said, well, why don't I work up a maquette, work up a little Photoshop mock-up and see how it works.
Wow,
What
is it like working with Brad Wright and Rob Cooper?
Well, it's brilliant. I've never had an experience like that since. My only regret is that I didn't realize how amazing it was because I was just so new to this business. But it was the first time that the sense about Stargate was that in a traditional kind of corporate world or a creative world, like this is your power pyramid, right? This is your power pyramid. You've got this, and then I'm not even on the same floor as the decision makers, right? But in Stargate, we were literally on the same floor as the decision makers, and
across the hall,
and they were across the hall, and I really tried to sort of not take advantage of that. But I was able to sort of, get the feedback that I needed to kind of move things forward, and to there wasn't a lot of kind of, spinning my wheels and backing and forthing. Like I would come up with a concept. There's Brad hey, Brad, here's my puddle jumper concept. And he's like, to Star Trek.
Yeah.
And
he'll be the one to know.
And I'm like, fair enough.
Yeah.
This is absolutely the approach. And I would see Cooper in the hall, and he'd be like, they would be speaking out the dialogue. They would be like reading the dialogue to themselves out loud. And you could see that's there's sort of this seriousness about the writing, and this seriousness about the craft of writing and about the craft of character building. And that's where I learned that sort of, play is not a dirty word. Play is a key part of serious work. There'd be Rob Cooper, you can hear him reading out the dialogue, and then you'd go into Peter DeLuise's office, and Peter DeLuise had all these like action figures, like beautiful kind of collectible action figures from different, Terminator and all, and sort of like, quite sort of generous size. And I said, what are, why do you have all these, collectible figures? And he's like, well, when we're working out a scene, I bring these figures, these, toys, I bring these figures down and we work out the scene with these actual, yeah. And
with
and
the
I was
101 Terminator. That's great.
yeah.
The T-800.
And I can't remember which figures that I think he might have had. I think there might have been Hellboy in there or
Oh,
something.
wow.
But they were like sort of working out scenes and working out kind of ideas using visual props, and that sort of really that stuck with me. That stuck with me. I don't know if you can see on the back there, but up in the top of my bookshelf there, my tokonoma, you can see there's 3 sculptures up there.
What are they?
I can get them for you if you're interested.
Just a name of what am I looking at? Are they like
Okay.
special designs, or I'm worried we're going to run out of time. So.
Oh shit. Oh, okay. They're basically they're just concept generators. They're idea generators. I create these shapes, I put them on a stick, and then if I'm designing something and I need an idea, I can look at these guys and say, hey,
Wow.
this is what this is. So I got that idea. I got that idea from Peter DeLuise.
Wow. No, the man is certainly brilliant, for sure.
Oh, there's the ejection handles you can see, and also the lowered kind of headrest, and you can see all the stuff. And that's our sliding front to the X302.
They use this to the end of Atlantis.
Yes, yes. My only regret with the design is that I didn't put more detail on that front, that front kind of snoot where all the HUD was.
Yeah, I can understand the need. Like there's, and I was wrong. The first season of Universe also used it as well. But there is sometimes a need to like fill things in. Like blank means something's missing. Not necessarily, but the creative part of you is like, is this the best you got? Seriously. So I totally get it.
But that's a pretty minor thing. I think overall, I think we nailed it, and I really have to credit Brad and Rob for just and Bridget for just kind of trusting in the process.
You know what? The first time I'm seeing this, the spokes or the fins or the projections on the front are the exact same ones, the exact same inspiration for the Daedalus. I mean, with the towers coming out of the front of the ship and the top of the ship. At least that's what I'm seeing.
I liked, these are weapons, right? So they need pokey bits.
Absolutely. If you're going to kamikaze, you want it to hurt just a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
Is this Brad Wright and Rob?
That is Brad. No, that's from Area 51. And those are scientists working on a maquette of the actual X. This is, I don't know how you got a hold of this image, but that apparently Brad Wright is also a scientist in Area 51. Yeah, that's Brad, myself, and Jim Ramsey, who was one of our very talented set designers.
Wow, I always knew those guys were saying all this stuff for plausible deniability. All right,
this stuff. It's sometimes it's more real than we realize.
Exactly.
And there's Colonel O'Neill checking out the equipment. So we took there's the Martin Wood, great guy to work with. So right now the set is sitting on a container in a hangar, airplane hangar.
Wow. If I remember, oftentimes they just used an empty or partially empty production studio at Bridge and just pretended like it was a hangar as well. So, but this one looks, because you have the exterior, you flip it over and you see either the exterior or a larger space. So this was actually one that they went to.
Yeah, we actually went to a hangar for like
Shell.
jet.
Okay. Ah,
And that's another. This is another. This was an inspiration that Brad had, which was just fantastic. Was he's like, let's put this thing on a truck and we're gonna tow it around like they're taxiing. And we did it at Golden Hour, which is that
yep.
and it was, and the effect was just amazing.
You don't need much to tell the story.
No, if you don't need much if you have very talented crews. Like what I learned a lot on when I was my time with Stargate was just how much you can do with cameras and lighting and framing. So one of the secret weapon of the production designer and the art director is the camera department and the lighting department. That's the way they choose to frame and light things is it really impacts how it looks on camera. And I've taken that lesson again from Stargate, is that you make the things that you design as easy for the crews to work with as possible, and there's a better chance that it's going to be on camera and it's going to look good.
Wow.
That's a early sort of very simple kind of concept, exploring some ideas with uh, undercarriage. That was one of the kind of the things about the design of the Death Glider and the X302, is that kind of banked wing shape really kind of
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally conflicts with functioning landing gear. So we kind of whistled past that one mostly.
Yeah, I think the landing gear ended up being under the main fuselage.
Yeah, yeah, I think that was probably a much better solution. Again, this is one of the things about film too, is that you can't have every idea. And sometimes if you come up with, like, I was very proud of the X302 and coming up, pulling that together.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you need other people, right? And you need there's things that you have, you're most of the idea, but then someone's like, hey, what about this? And you're like, yes or no. And again, that's what it was, working with Brad and with Peter, is like, hey, what about this? And it's like, yes or no, or now's not the time, and it's all done very sort of respectfully and professionally. And I took that lesson with me,
Mm-hmm.
is that it's a you need talent to survive in film, and for film and television to be engaged and to have the life that it still has.
Mm.
You need that talent at every level.
Absolutely.
And that's just a little kind of splash page I put together after the episode was wrapped to kind of celebrate sort of how it all kind of sort of came together.
Wow. I always thought that this artwork on the top left was made for Fallen, but I guess they just incorporated that into some of the concept art for Fallen later, because this was already made. Because the next time we see that ship really outside of Earth's atmosphere is at the beginning of season 7, when O'Neill and Carter are going up against Anubis over whatever planet it was. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and quite often what happens is I'll produce more artwork than is necessary,
Yep.
and I'll just, keep it in my back pocket. And
Rarely
then
does anything go to waste. Rarely.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. This is the actual visual effects models that was built by the visual effects company. And so you can see that while everything is sort of pretty much true to what I've designed, they actually added their enhancements, which I really quite like too. I think, if you go to my original image, the rockets were quite simple, whereas here they've, the engines are a bit more sort of developed and kind of convincing.
It's a
Yeah,
pretty ship.
there's the undercarriage there.
And it's totally believable that, if Death Gliders fly in this universe, and they do,
Yeah.
that we could take inspiration from that. And I got to tell you, Peter, I have come across a guy who took your design and made it fly. And I will send you the link for that. It's a previous episode that we did.
Please do, please do. One of the greatest, like So as a kid, I always built plastic models. I still have some, sort of that I do occasionally, just for relaxation. And there is kind of resin model kits that have been
Mm.
produced, and I was seriously thinking about getting one, but then it occurred to me I could just go onto my computer and get the original. But
Someone,
I think, just to
yeah.
like out of just the sheer joy of it, I think I may actually get myself one of these resin model kits.
Make it happen. Yeah, he built one that's probably the length of a well, if you put your hands out, maybe a little bit shorter than that on either side. But yeah, a friend told him that would never fly. He's like, "You don't think so?" He's like, "Yeah." And I forget what he's European, and he said, "I'm going to go," and he built it, and we've got video of it flying, so I'll send it to you. I didn't
I
think
would.
it could fly. He had to change the angle of attack a little, but I mean, it's mostly there.
So I have to close. My mouth is hanging open in amazement. I would love. Please send me that link.
If you
That is
if we
incredible.
have a little bit of time, I'll show it to you right here. So, all right,
And
Promi.
so here is. Oh, sorry. This I just wanted to show you. This is a.
Oh, sorry. Let me go back to you.
We actually
Ah,
we actually made a paper model of the X302 just as like a as kind of a. We took all our information that we had created on the computer, and actually were able to make a.
pull it forward a little bit. So fans are going to want to read some of what that says.
Oh, I'll read it out for you too.
Okay.
I actually wrote this is the blurb that I wrote. USAF X302. Long shrouded in secrecy, the X302 Advanced Strategic Interceptor is an awesome weapon. Rumored to be Earth's frontline defense against off-world threat, the X302's weapons systems, propulsion, and general specifications remain a closely guarded secret. What little we do know about the X302 suggests that many key systems have been reverse engineered from alien technology acquired through a shadowy agency known only as SGC.
And this comes from The Deep Web, written by Martin Lloyd.
So we had a lot of fun. We had a
Oh
lot of fun.
man. Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Here's Promi.
Yeah, here we go. Prometheus.
Bridget McGuire said she didn't even have a month heads up. They're like, okay, so we've got maybe around a month, but not a lot. We got a spaceship coming up for the mid-season two-parter. What can you do? And it was like, here we go. They gave you the money, and over season, you guys literally built on top and built out on the Norco sets this amazing structure that stood from season 6 of SG-1 to end of season 1 of Universe.
And that's an example, I think, of this, what I was talking about everyone has their everyone has their sort of you need a team of talent.
Mm.
So Bridget had this brilliant concept where the set was built as kind of like a race car track with a bar in the middle, and we had these big doors that could look like walls, and these doors open up and down. And so with the design of this set, that center place could be a room, it could be an elevator, and
Wow.
so that was incredible. And then she left the design of the sort of the bridge was kind of more. I sort of had more kind of involvement in the design of the bridge. And again, the design brief that came from that was that the when the actors are shooting, the heads need to be so, if you've got the front consoles
Yep.
are raised because the actors, you need the heads at kind of roughly the same level for framing. But it also, instead of that being a challenge, it becomes an opportunity, right? Well, let's have some cool level changes on the floors. One thing that always sort of I struggled with in the design of spaceships is just how, absolutely spacious they tend to be, right? Because they have to work for filming.
That's right.
And
This is not
if
the
you look at
ISS.
yeah, if you look at a real spaceship like the space shuttle, if you look at the space shuttle, there's there's the bulkheads are like right, so you can have access to the switches and stuff. and the bulkheads are like that. So we came up with this compromise where the kind of systems panels to the side, we built down the bulkheads so that you could create that feel of this kind of, you're in a like almost like in a cockpit. But then when you move to the center where O'Neill and the other sort of people kind of running things would be, you had a little more kind of space, and then we had the kind of and they had the table in the back for kind of situational brief and management of kind of what's going on. So we took a lot of ideas about how like the space shuttle would work and how the bridge of an aircraft carrier would work, and we sort of kind of glom those together.
I got to tell you, man, I dislike the exterior of Prometheus. And James Robbins was very understanding when I admitted this to him, because he's very much it was clearly a mandate. This is the first ship. This needs to be function over form, period. And it has that design. And when the Daedalus came on screen, it was like, oh, thank God. That's my reaction. Oh,
and I think
Brad overhead like this.
Brad learned his lesson.
Turtle. I love turtles.
Brad learned his lesson. Brad's mandate was let's make it look like an aircraft carrier in space. That's why it has that big flat top, and it has the the superstructure off to one side. But I also I wanted it to sort of it does have the Prometheus structure buried inside it. Yeah. We sort of tried to kind of be honest about it.
Oh, the Daedalus?
But yeah. Sorry?
The Daedalus, you mean?
The Daedalus.
Yeah, it's like you've taken the upper decks off and then just put this thing on. You want to see something amazing? This was made by a fan.
God.
This is hundreds and hundreds of pieces of styrene.
That is incredible.
And
I can feel like the tingles on my back looking at this thing.
He designed this thing from the ground up. I've lost a comm tower. I need to glue it back in. But Peter, it is probably the prize of my collection in terms of what fans have made, because it took him months to build. And
well, please tell him this is, oh my God.
I will indeed, because the talent that your teams inspire in people is just out of this world. And
well, the passion we bring to things obviously
translates.
Someone's paying attention.
Someone is paying attention, indeed, for sure.
I gotta say, like we'll save it for next time. The Daedalus, I started with the back. I started with the engines.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
It was like
you got thrusters, you got hyperdrive. There's a little of everything there. Okay, I've got to know. Why did you start at the back? Did you just not want to? I'm curious.
It was the script. It was it was about. It was about this thing reaching out across the universe. And if we're going to do that, we need a lot of power. That's where that's coming from. It's about, a lot of the stuff that I'm designing, it's like, oh, that'd be cool. Or, oh, we've got, 6,000 bread pans. Let's see if we can make a spaceship out of that. But if it's script, the script is always, the generator, right? It's always where that's where your ideas should start.
Wow.
And sometimes you don't understand what's in the producer's head. Other times they don't understand what's in their head, and then you're like, hey, I read this, and this is what I thought, and they're like, oh my God, yes. And so that's where that came from.
Wow. It's our first extra galactic vehicle. It's the only thing that rivals anything the Asgard ever made. And it's my favorite Earthship, period. F302 in close second, but she's a beauty, and I cannot wait to get to those designs with you. So let that percolate over the next few weeks, in terms of those stories.
I certainly will.
All
Maybe
right.
as a thank you, I'll send you maybe a signed copy of the sketch.
Oh my God, I would love that. That's absolutely cool. All right. Now this, I first thought was from one of the meeting rooms in Atlantis, because it has the design architecture. And then I see in the corner Neart's DNA sequencer, which was a story that was partly brought forward by Jacqueline Samuda. So this is the upper chamber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were dropping these little kind of hints about the ancients.
Yep.
As season 6 progressed. So that's what's happening. I didn't understand. I didn't know. Like obviously, Brad had the story arc all worked out, and I was just
He knows what's up.
and so I was following his cues, and so we were introducing these little kind of little Easter eggs about ancient technology. Had I really fully understood what was, I would have been even more kind of, I would have played with it even more.
Well, I mean, your message is reaching across time. You send me a file that was made for a show that came out in 2002, and I look at it and go, oh, I saw that 2 years later on a ceiling, and it's the same race, so it works.
Well,
you were given enough.
Yeah, even though I was only on the show for, it's funny. I look at things and I see a lot of the stuff that was initially kind of turned down. Either we didn't have budget, we didn't have to. I was just a creative, like, I was a little kind of creative reactor. I was just like, oh,
Sure.
we could do this and we could do that. Um, I realize now, maybe for our next meeting, I'll have my sketchbooks ready, and then I can just show you, because I have each season is in a sketchbook, and the sketchbook is
Wow.
packed with ideas.
No, absolutely. Let's do that. Especially you and I have good quality cameras. Not every guest that comes on has good cameras, so I really
Yes,
appreciate it.
I during COVID, I mean, art directing remotely is a difficult thing, so I made sure that I had the resources.
Absolutely. They can't just make sure that you're present. You're doing a little bit more detail than that. The next one that I have for people, I have marked the file as red herring, because Garwin Sanford, who played the Tollan Nareem, came on Dial the Gate a few years ago and revealed that during the 100th episode bash for season 5's Wormhole Extreme, there was a party. And the cast and crew were all there, and the extended satellite cast were also brought in as well. Brad and Rob, I can't remember who it was specifically, came up to Garwin and said, even though the Tollan were destroyed earlier this season, we're considering bringing them back. And he told us this story, and it was like, oh my God, because we were always wanting a third part to that. The Tollans, it felt like they went too soon. Okay, so this is, if I'm remembering the name correctly, this is Forsaken. So
Yes.
this is the Cerberus, and this is like 60% of a ship. And
Yes.
but we only really designed the side, and in the wide shot at the end, I think we see the full thing
Yeah, exactly.
digitally.
Yeah. So we stuck it in the sand at a weird angle,
Yep.
and then we were trying to sort of figure, and then the actual set was at a different angle, and I was like, it's television. I wasn't too worried about it, but we did resolve it in the design of the ship in case there was some questions being asked as to why is that pointing up
Right.
when the set is level. It's like, well,
Oh, I didn't even think of that until now. Thanks for breaking my imagination 20 years later.
see, it's like,
yeah.
no, I knew that. We were like, oh my God, what people see it and they'll think. It's like, no, they won't. It's like, that was really interesting, because one of the things that was happening at season 6 is that we were spending a whole lot of money. We were spending a lot of money, and we didn't have an unlimited budget the way that the other science fiction shows did. So eventually, Bridget was like, we need to do things we need to limit sculpting. We need to limit the kind of, those kind of forms. And so that set was all carpenters and all sort of flat surfaces, but you can do a lot with flat surfaces.
This is
You
true.
can, there's a lot of dynamic and a lot of energy, and we have incredibly talented people on the show. These guys, you've got carpenters who used to build boats and build guitars, and so they have a real capacity for creating sort of complex shapes with just using plywood and medite and things like that. So with that ship was a lot of fun because the set decorators showed up and they had, hey, we went to an auction and we got like 200 of these industrial baking forms. I don't know what the hell they were, but they were, they were these beautiful metal sheets that had these kind of punched shapes.
Yes.
And so we're like, yeah, let's take those and let's build a spaceship.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what we did.
I was having a conversation recently. I can't remember who it was. Damn it! But you take something off the shelf and it's like, it's a dental pick, and it's one thing, and then you put it in the show and it's like, what is that? What is that? It's a dental pick? Oh, it is. It is a dental pick. And one, I'm thinking, that is so creative. And two, it's like, what kind of brain does it take to turn that into that? I don't get it. It's not in here. I can tell you this right now.
It's in model building they call it kit bashing, right?
That's
Where
right.
you sort of you take a piece of a tank and you stick it on and it becomes a spaceship or
That's how we got the Death Star surface.
city or something.
Yeah.
One thing though, hey, let's take this thing and put it in a different context. Let's take this glass soap dish and it becomes a lamp on a wall. That actually happened. Um, what the second part to that equation though is the actors and what they do with it. So we had I can't remember the actor's name. He was
More information.
sorry.
More information.
Okay, so he was on Star Trek, not Discovery, the one where it was before
Enterprise. Enterprise is the prequel.
Yeah, so he was on Enterprise, and he was a guest star with us.
Connor Trenier played Michael in season 2 of Atlantis.
Yeah, and so we had this Goa'uld control panel called I think it was called City Lights or something. It had all this kind of stuff on it, GAC, and none of it functioned. There was no buttons to push. It was just a thing with a bunch of stuff kind of glued on that, and again, you had like, I'm sure there was bits of different sort of, technology, things that we'd stuck together and painted. And he just started operating this thing like each thing had a function. He was pretending it was like, like those activity centers where you put in the baby's crib. And he was just turning knobs that didn't turn, and he was operating slides that weren't there. It was just these like stuck, these fixed things.
Wow.
But his performance just brought this piece of scenery to life. And after I saw that, that took a lot of pressure off me. I was like, what if this thing doesn't work the way, if it's an absolutely 100% scripted prop, it better do what the hell you tell it. It's what you promise, what the director has asked for, right? If you need that drawer to open up in the Daedalus, and then inside is the crystals that shows the connection between the Goa'uld and the human technology, it better do that. But for a lot of your design, you can just sort of create opportunities.
Trust your talent to play make-believe.
And that's, again, it's it seems effortless, but acting is an incredible skill. And you see the performers, and you see just how sort of good they are at their craft. And that watching that happen, it sort of gave me the permission to sort of start playing and adding and creating opportunity. I'm still fulfilling the design. I'm still fulfilling the design brief. I'm doing what the script wants. I'm doing what the producers want. I'm doing what the camera needs, but I'm also creating opportunities.
Absolutely. So I can just imagine, Connor, what were you doing? I don't know. I was just nothing. Some of them just go into this zone. One
And
last
doing their
piece.
thing. It's called it. Yeah, they're just doing their thing, and you just gotta don't look at them. Don't hit the eye line.
Yeah.
Just let them do their thing, and sometimes it's magic.
And then, Peter, you bring me this sketch, and it was like, oh my gosh, there's more evidence that was moving forward as an idea. Tollan personal vehicle. There's no mistaking that is clearly from Tollan Technology, and 6th of June 2002. So this is around the same time that Prometheus was probably going to camera, if I've got my dates right. Tell me about this image, whatever you can, because I am all ears.
Again, it was a conversation in a hall, with Brad and Peter and whomever. It's like, hey, so we've got this society, and their technology is about here. And I said, oh, that's cool. And then so I just went back to my desk and I just started playing around.
Wow.
And I said, hey, what about this? And they're like, we'll file it.
Yes.
And that's as far as it went.
Well, I'm thrilled that we have it now, because it's just a little bit more of what could have been. So it's great to see.
You can see on the page that I'm playing with a number of sort of ideas. Like on the top is kind of subtractive forms, and on the bottom, and the actual kind of one that I rendered is a little more kind of additive forms.
Mm-hmm. I love the organicness of this. I can see how these kinds of things eventually led you to the jumper a little while soon. But yeah, this is good stuff.
Cheers.
Season 7 of SG-1, Fallen and Homecoming, is an open two-parter. The first episode really features the F-302 heavily. The X-30, it's technically an F-302 at this point. We take out Anubis, we disable him, and then he's like, I need more Naquita. Yeah, and then he goes to Kelowna, which is now Langara,
Yes.
and apparently...
Langara is on Langara, yeah.
Yeah, yes, not actually Langara in Canada.
Langara
but this
is the
one,
planet. Langara is the planet, and Kelowna is the nation state.
the nation state by this point, and it looks as though you were designing something that may have gone up to fight against the Goa'uld assault. Now, I'm curious because Langara is 1950s Earth technology. This thing looks pretty darned advanced.
This was inspired by. If you've ever, there was a book that I have that I had when I was a kid. It was American jet bombers of the 1940s. And so after World War II, the Americans got their hands on all this German research, and they started experimenting like crazy with different types of swept wings. This is where the kind of the saber came from, and it ultimately resulted in the B-47.
Got it.
Which was a revolutionary sort of thing. And so they had access to all these kind of German experimental designs. And so I took this book and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to say that the Kelownians are experimenting with jet power as well.
They would have had to have had a delivery system for the Naquadria bomb that we know that they drop. So it makes sense that something like this would indeed exist. So,
but the problem though, again, I'm a designer and I'm like full of ideas, and things are not necessarily jiving with what's happening with the script. So this was just a little bit too advanced.
Got it.
This was sort of Kelowna was kind of like industrial kind of 1940s, and this is like a little bit too far out.
Well, it's still hella cool,
Well, fine. And it was, again, I like to play around with ideas, and sometimes they stick, and sometimes just because an idea doesn't get used, I keep it in my back pocket, and it may show up somewhere else.
Absolutely. Every time I see this, I have to check the text because I think it's upside down. It's like, which way is the text facing?
That was not entirely successful attempt at yeah. It looks up. Yeah, it's like, okay, I'll do a ship where all the interesting stuff is on the bottom.
Sure,
That
and we
really,
do
really
see
doesn't
it in
work.
the background of the space race shots, so it is there.
Yeah, yeah. So that was just playing around with the idea of making all the interesting stuff on the bottom.
And this one too.
Yeah, I think that one came.
Murios' ship, the Itan Mayo. That's cool. You gave it a name.
Yeah, I think that was a ton. I think that came from. I think that was from the script actually.
Okay.
But again, you're trying to tell a story of speed and power, so you're sort of playing around with that.
Mm-hmm. This was around, so I'm trying to think. This would have been 2002. And in 2000, 2001, Voyager had done a space race episode. Were you aware of it? How much did Brad tell you to stay away from it?
I wasn't aware of it.
No.
I was. It's funny. At the time I had sort of. I was a huge TOS fan as a kid. I was loved Kirk and Spock and Bones and all those guys, but I never really the Next Generation universe never really stuck with me.
Boy, are you missing out. But okay, to each their
That's
own.
what my wife says.
Yeah.
My wife is a huge. She's been to Trek conventions. She's a huge fan. So
She's
we
a
watched.
diehard.
We've been watching Next Generation. Sort of catching up.
Fair
But
enough.
at the time, for whatever reason, mostly because when Next Generation was big, I was in architecture school and I didn't have a TV.
Makes sense, for sure. Yeah, you had your head in the books.
So no, I wasn't aware. So I think that was actually probably a
I
that probably
agree.
helped.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
That is inspired by a record player needle. I think I
Ah.
copied but not that one is a little bit sort of Star Warsy for
Hmm.
me, but it's you're just playing around.
Yeah, everything leads to something. How long does it take for a sketch like this?
So that one, you can see that I start with a blue pencil. If I've worked out if I've worked out the shapes and I'm pretty happy with kind of the shapes, something like that, I could probably, I'd say 2 hours max.
Wow, okay. Compared to something like this.
Yeah, that one's about half a day. That one's about half a
Yeah.
day.
This is Birthright. This is the Hacktill settlement, specifically Ishta's tent in
Yes.
Stargate SG-1 Season 7. Notoriously, it looks like this on the outside, but when they switch to the interior, it looks like a completely different place.
We whistled past that one.
Right, we'll whistle past the graveyard on that one, but this is so cool, man.
Thank you. That was Bridget was shared some travel photos from Southeast Asia, and that was kind of the inspiration for that. I can't tell you what the actual area that where she was in, but she showed me these beautiful raised sort of structures, and so that was the inspiration that we started with.
Wow, awesome. This is Fallout.
Hmm.
This is the last episode I have for you from working on SG-1, which is, I think, really telling because you just talked about the core, and this is a very, very similar concept. We've got to stop a planet from wiping out everyone on the surface, and so this is the driller, I believe.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Was it hard to steer away from the design elements of things that you saw in the core, or was it like very easy where it's like, okay, they did this, so I'm going to go in this direction? How do you approach that? I mean, surely on some level, a fear of transposition is playing about in your imagination.
Yes, and that's where, having access to the producers helps a lot because they'll sort of keep us sort of on the straight and narrow. If you can go back to that sketch, the top sort of
Oops, sorry.
so the top you can see that's actually very much like the core where you've got those circular kind of
Yep.
almost like frilled skirts. That was the core propulsion system. So that didn't survive. That went away. As for we actually went to like a tracked system, almost like it was like going in. It was almost like this kind of, yeah, there you go, track, like a
Like that.
three-dimensional. Yeah, so became this like three-dimensional caterpillar.
Wow.
Um, what made it easy to sort of steer away from the core was that we had the Kelowna design brief.
Yes.
So by starting with Kelowna as the technology, that gave us kind of enough cues that we could sort of steer away from the core.
What would this have looked like in the 1940s and 50s without unobtainium?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Makes a lot of
And
sense.
that's where like tracks come in. Yeah. I don't know what that is. That was again, there was, all these worlds that we're visiting,
Yeah.
and that was me just pitching an idea.
Well, it's cool. I wish we had seen something like it.
It might show up on another show.
There you go.
Again, another sort of playing around with these ideas of what would the technology on these other worlds look like.
Yeah, you're pretty early on. This is February, so you guys are only beginning to start shooting.
Yeah. And so what happens is at the beginning of the season, everyone's like really excited and really happy
Yeah, you're not
and
beat down yet.
not beat down yet. And Brad's like, hey, so this is what's happening this year. We're going
Mm,
to have, we're going to be going to this planet and we're going to be seeing these people and this is going to happen. And he doesn't get into the specific plot details, but he paints a broad picture of kind of the worlds that we're going to. And so I would just take that and run with it. And, just, and what I did is that I wouldn't, go running into his office going, oh, hey, chief, what about this?
right.
What I was a little bit more kind of subtle than that. I would, sketch all this stuff and then I'd make a copy of it, color it and then just stick it up in the art department around my desk. I just have these things on the wall. People come by and they'd be like, hey, what's that? Like, what do you think it might be?
Does it inspire anything?
Does
Yeah,
it?
I am. We're at the wet your whistle phase. So,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And again, that's one of the things that sort of got me sort of in love with film and television is this idea that you know openness to where ideas might take you.
absolutely.
Again, that's I was trying to get more. So that's a little bit more. That's Kelowna again, a little bit more sort of in the timeline of the society. So that's a three-engine bomber with where the the wing is the fuselage. So it's basically a
Yeah.
fly.
This is probably what the Nequadria bomb was delivered in.
Yes, yes, I think that would be sort of more sort of in that. One of the difficulties, though, as you know, in my role in Stargate, is as much as I loved kind of designing these things, if it was a purely visual effect, I was limited as to how much time I could spend on that because I my job was to make sure that there was beautiful scenery that people could be that we could move the story forward in. So these kind of designing these sort of purely visual effect objects was a little more sort of just kind of me sort of hoping to kind of mildly kind of direct where they might want to take the design of these things.
Top view
That
of
one
it.
I was Yeah, that one I was pretty happy with. That one I was pretty
Yeah,
happy
it looks
with.
really cool.
Yeah. I now that I'm seeing these again, I was like, I may actually, start whipping those up in 3D.
We're
Uh,
wetting your whistle now.
yeah, yeah,
That's what happens with something. I can do something with that.
exactly, exactly. So I can't remember which episode it was, but there were some drones. So I just sort of, sketched some ideas for drones.
Yeah, it looks like a UAV of some sort, the next version.
Yeah, yeah. I think those are pretty much kind of copied from like stealth UAVs.
Yeah. Another plane design.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that one.
I like it. It's cool.
I think again, I was thinking about. I was interested in the idea of symmetrical but not even numbers. So I think in all of these Colonan uh, aircraft, I've got like two engines, but there's three wing bays. In this one, I got two wing bays, but there's three engines.
Well, there's three nations, so a lot of Kelowna and Langara. There's a lot of three in that storytelling. So I'm not surprised at all.
That must have been, I think that was a subconsciously in my sort of, and that happens too, where you're sort of you're immersed in this world,
Mm-hmm.
and you pick up on cues that sometimes you're not aware of.
Mm-hmm. No, we influence ourselves artistically in ways that we can't even think of. You know, Peter, going through the SG-1 art has really brought back a lot of stuff I drew all the time as a kid. For Christmas, for the longest time, I didn't get toys. I got, blank sheets of paper and pencils and that's what I wanted. They're like, that's what he wants for Christmas. He wants blank pieces of it. I wanted the canvas and different kinds. And seeing this, then one year I got a tape recorder and never looked back. Here I am. But I can see like the design of that, where it's, that all comes from that kind of place. Looking at a blank canvas and saying, okay, what's going to come out? What's going to come out is what you've consumed. You can't help it. That's your context. That's what you have to work with. And here it is. Makes a lot of sense.
Well, and that's exactly, and that would be, advice to the kids out there, is build that internal dictionary of experience. Like if you want to be, have a creative career, take an interest in the world.
Enlarge your canvas. Yeah. Go places. Canvas. Explore.
And also too, a canvas terrified me. A blank piece of paper terrified me as a kid. So I started with model kits. I started with, give me a rough idea of where I need to go.
Mm.
And then what that did was, by building models and, looking at sort of books about kind of, World War II and airplanes and stuff like that, is that then started to give me the starting point where the blank canvas wasn't so scary anymore. Right.
That's cool. Peter, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on, sharing some details. But
my pleasure. This has been a lot of fun. I hope
this has been great. Do this again. I'm thrilled that we ran so long that we get to do it again. I want to tape your reaction to what I'm about to show you. Big enough?
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Yes, I can hear it just fine.
Here we go.
That looks pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good.
Holy smokes.
I don't know how he can make it work with the GoPro on one side. Like, how do you counterbalance it on the other? Yet he can fly it.
There is a world of brilliant people out there
that you inspire.
That so many of them are Stargate fans. I've been to Stargate conventions, and so many Stargate fans are scientists and PhDs and academic and people that really have a real interest in the it's Stargate is about going outside of the world, but it's full of people that have a real interest in the world.
And it makes you wonder just how much can we make here at sent me a video home. For this online. And it turns out we can make quite a bit. Joel's music from SGU. Miss him terribly. He's about to land.
Mhm.
Well, crash.
That part we didn't quite work out.
My thanks once again. Isn't it just brilliant?
That is incredible. I can see what he's done to sort of modify the wings, but it still looks like the F-302. It's
Yeah.
absolutely
There is still a slant, you know. It's not
Yeah.
not much of one, but it's pretty amazing. So
that is
I got to see your reaction to that. I'm going to add that to the end of the show. So all right.
Thank you, David. That was amazing.
Peter Bodnarus, art director for Stargate SG-1 seasons 6 and 7 and Stargate Atlantis seasons 1 and 2. We were planning on going through the entire show. We did go through the entire show, SG-1. We were planning on going through his entire time with the franchise. And we were going at a speed where it was like, I don't want to rush him. I can't rush this guy. What do I do? So I said, can you please come back for another episode? Yep, sure. So thank you, sir. We really appreciate you tuning in. I do not row alone. A number of people helped me pull this off, and I'm gonna thank them here in just a moment. If you enjoy Stargate and you want to see more content like this on YouTube, please click the like button. It does make a difference with the show and will continue to help us grow our audience. Please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend, and if you want to get notified about future episodes, click subscribe. And giving the bell icon a click will notify you the moment a new video drops, and you'll get my notifications of any last-minute guest changes. And clips from this episode will be released over the course of the next few weeks on both the Dial the Gate and GateWorld.net YouTube channels. Thanks so much to my tremendous moderating team, Anthony, Jeremy, Marcia, Summer, Tracy, Raj, Lockwatcher, and Kevin. I cannot do this show without your help. Frederick Marcoux at Concepts Web keeps dialthegate.com up and running. My producer, Linda Gate Gabber Fury, and my producer, Kevin Weaver, as well. That's what we've got for you in this episode. Lots of stuff heading your way throughout the rest of the next couple of months here. We are in high gear trying to produce about 4 episodes per week. The complete current list is available at dialthegate.com for guests and times. My name is David Reed, and I will see you on the other side.